All right, well, today in Mr. Lane's science class, we're going to be talking about a really funny scientist. We're going to use one of his stories about visually impaired aliens who love soccer to understand what science is. So today, our theme is, what is science? Well, in particular, we're going to do three things today. We're going to introduce the scientist named Leon Lederman, one of my favorites. We're going to use a story that he came up with to describe what science is, and we're going to see if we can understand science from that story. And then I'm going to give you the actual working definition of what science is. So remember, as you're filling out those Cornell note sheets, that should be in your first column. All right, you're writing those targets so you can fill in as we go. Well, Leon Lederman. I was really lucky. I actually had the chance to actually hear Leon Lederman speak. He's still alive, but so you might have the chance. He came to my high school. He spoke to a group of science teachers, and being the nerdy kid that I was, I snuck in and listened to him, and he was a really amazing man. In fact, there he is right there. Leon Lederman, there he is right there. He is, well, let's see, he was born in 1922 in New York City, and he was born on a middle-class family, and was very good at math and science, and very quickly developed a passion for it. I mean, that's really what he lived for. He wanted to know how the universe worked and use math to understand it. He went to college and was able to get a degree and became a particle physicist. Now, a particle physicist is someone who's really interested in the tiniest little bits of our universe. It's the little particles that make up atoms. It's not even an atom, it's even smaller than that. And he became a scientist that studied those. He also became the director of Fermi National Accelerator, and that's in Illinois. And what it is this big machine, basically, underground, that takes little tiny particles and smashes them together. And when they smash them together, there's like an explosion, and they're actually able to figure out what's inside of them from those explosions. And so he was in charge of that. In 1988, he won a Nobel Prize, and that's the top award for a scientist. That's as high as you can get. And he won it for his work on neutrinos, which we're not going to get into really detail, but these are little tiny particles in our universe that move really fast and can go through lots of stuff. In fact, they travel through the Earth without hitting things, and they're pretty amazing. We can talk about them later. You can come and ask me later in class. He also wrote many papers and books. In fact, what Leon Lederman is known for is his sense of humor. He is one of the funniest scientists you'll ever meet. He's almost a comedian, if you will. And in fact, one of his books, after I heard him speak, I went out right away and I bought it. It was called The God Particle. Now, this is not a book about religion, and it's not about God. It has nothing to do with that kind of stuff. It's about scientists' search for the basic building blocks of our universe. What is the smallest thing that is in the universe? That's really what this book is about. It's also about what is science, and maybe getting an understanding for science. If you're looking for, it's kind of a difficult read, I'm guessing, for most middle schoolers, but if you're really interested, I have a couple copies of it. You can try reading it, but it's really good. It's really interesting. And in the book, Leon Lederman uses a story, and I really like the story, and it tells, basically, it's a good parable for science. And understanding the story, you can understand some things about science. And so I'm going to share that story with you, and we're going to see if we can figure some stuff out. What is science? Well, it starts off with an alien race. They're called the Twilights. And the Twilights come from a planet called Twilo. Now on Twilo, it's a very strange world. There is no black and white things next to each other, right? So the Twilos have developed over time that they cannot see black and white next to each other. So if there was a referee standing here, they would not see a referee. If there was a penguin, the penguin would be invisible because it's black and white next to each other. Or a zebra, they couldn't see a zebra. Now I know that sounds really weird and far-fetched, but it's not that strange. I mean, you and I actually have a blind spot in our eye. There's a spot that you can actually not see anything. And your brain just invents it, what's there, makes a guess, says, oh, I think that's there. But we live with that all the time. So having weird sight things isn't that unnormal. Well, the Twilights come to Earth, and they're very peaceful people. They come to our planet, and the scientists that are showing them around the world want to show them what is the culture of Earth. And they take them to the biggest and most popular sporting event in the entire world. Now, it's not baseball, it's not basketball, it's not football or the Super Bowl, it's the World Cup in soccer. Well, they take him to a soccer match, but there's kind of a problem. Most soccer balls are black and white next to each other. So the Twilights, they sit at the match and they're very polite. They watch the game happening in front of them, but to them it doesn't make any sense. It's just kids and people, men or women, could be the Women's World Cup, just running around. And they don't understand what's happening because they can't see the ball. Well, over time, maybe some of the Twilights start to maybe come up with ideas of what's happening. Maybe they sit down and they watch and they notice that the players out there, even though they're just randomly running around to them, have different clothes on. Some of them are dressed in yellow, some are dressed in blue. So they're able to figure out, well, there's two teams. So they have an idea, maybe there's two teams happening here and they're just running around. Well, they also notice that some of the players are in different spots on the field. So the Twilights are able to figure out there's two teams and there's people at different jobs all over the field. But they still don't understand what they're seeing. Well, occasionally at this match, people in the crowd would scream out, "Wow!" so excited, and they didn't understand it. Until one little Twilight watches the game, and right the second before the crowd started to scream, that little Twilight saw something. He noticed that in the back of the net, right before everyone screamed, there was a bulge. Now, he couldn't see what made the bulge, but he saw that the bulge was round. He thought, wow, that's strange. There's got to be something more to this activity than we're able to see, what the Twilights could see. So that little Twilight, he watched again, and this time, a little bit later, he noticed again a bulge right in the back of the net, right before everyone screamed. And he thought, that's really strange. That has something to do with what I'm seeing. I wonder, since it's round, if there's a ball. Yeah, there's a ball. And so he watched the rest of the game, and this time with the idea of a small ball that was invisible to him, but still there, being passed by the players as they kick it. And maybe then it's being shot through the goal. And all of a sudden, soccer made sense to this Twilight, because he watched and he looked for strange things that didn't quite fit to what he understood. You see, what Leon Lederman was doing was giving us an analogy of science. Now, I know it's soccer balls and an alien that can't see black and white and all yet, but what was happening was these alien race, the Twilights, couldn't understand something, and so they used their minds and what they saw and came up with a solution based on what they saw and they knew. We call that science. And really in class, we're going to say science is a way to investigate the universe and how it works using the scientific method. Now, we're going to get really in detail on what the scientific method is, but really, at its core, what it is understanding the world around you by looking at what you see and coming up with predictions, experiments, and then drawing conclusions from that experiment. It's exactly what the Twilights did. So that's what science is. We have the story, we have what the definition. Now, a little secret, I'm going to let you in on something. Don't tell anybody. Really, science is just math. Now, I know we have different classes. You go to this class for math, you go to my class for science. Well, what's going on? Well, really, what science is taking math and applying it to the real world. Think about it. Look and you'll see tons of times that science and math are the same. We use words that are the same, like variable, which we'll talk about. We try and understand and figure out things that are unknown. You might do that in math as an equation, 2 plus 2. So what does that equal? Well, you find out, 4. Or it might be understanding what happens when a ball gets thrown up in the air. Science is math. If we were middle schoolers, science and math would be besties, right? So, just a little secret just to fill you in. So here's what we did in this video. I introduced you to another scientist. His name is Leon Lederman. Really funny guy, particle physicist, wrote a lot of books. One of them was called The God Particle. I told you the story that Leon Lederman used in The God Particle to understand science, that the Twilights looked for a little bulge in the back of a net, and they were able to figure out the beautiful game of soccer based on that little bulge. Using that, we came up with a definition of science, that science is investigating the universe around it by using the scientific method. And we're going to talk more about the scientific method later. Well, when you come to class, I want you to think for yourself, when was there a time that you used science where you didn't usually think you... Where did you use science before? And be prepared to share. Now, it doesn't have to be in class. So one time I did an experiment. Think of other times that you wanted to figure something out on your own, and so you made an experiment. You came up with something. You watched. Right? And we're going to share those in class. Now, remember how these videos work. You can always go back and watch it again. You can pause it, rewind, wait a little bit, come back. But always remember that you need to keep moving forward.